Hello again, it's Matt. Today I want to talk to you about a game named Prodigal. It's a neat little indie game made by a company called Colorgrave. They actually have a few games out on Steam right now, and you can get their whole library for like less than $25. But I want to talk about Prodigal in particular. It's an exploration, adventure, puzzle game in the vein of classic Zelda games. The strongest influence is probably from Link's Awakening, but I can feel some of the Oracle's games in there too, and even the original NES Zeldas. Now, I've been a fan of the Legend of Zelda series basically as long as I've been alive, and while I haven't really loved the last few entries, making a game that feels like the handheld ones that I really liked is a great way to get me interested. And you can find a lot of games in this genre now, but few that do it as well as Prodigal. So let's dive in. We play as a man named Orin, a complicated fellow who is returning home to a remote frontier town after a long absence. This is why the game is named Prodigal. The game opens with him receiving a letter from his grandfather asking him to come home because his parents have died and at least pay his respects. Upon arriving, he is met with very different receptions from the various townsfolk. Some people are happy to see Orin, like his grandfather, his friend Hugh, and various girls who have crushes on him. Others hate him, calling him a thief due to the way he left town years ago after stealing $400 from his parents. So we already know our character is a jerk and is maybe trying to change, but it's hard to tell because he doesn't speak. In fact, usually the way we learn more about Orin is from another character saying like, oh, you've changed in this way, or you used to be like this. It's a little bit roundabout, but it works. As an aside, we can see in this store that a slice of pie costs $100. It is a magical pie that brings you back from death, but that does mean that Orin stole the equivalent of 4 slices of pie. I guess it's just the principle of the thing. Early game is all about establishing the townsfolk characters. Many of them are women who you can later marry, like in a Harvest Moon game. Almost all of the townsfolk have quests and help to find or unlock items in dungeons. There's a church, an alchemist, your grandfather is a blacksmith, and there's even a magic pirate named Amadeus that defends the town from, well, basically anything, but especially soldiers from the south. I feel bad for Keaton. Now she has to clean up corpse ash. You see, this town, which is named Vans Point, is a frontier town on the edge of the north. The north is apparently a terrible, dangerous place, and anyone who wants to explore or claim parts of it has to contend with monsters. We do not actually go to the north in this game, but the location of Vans Point as a portal to the frontier is very important for the overall world building and setting. We learned that even though Vans Point is a free town, it's always under pressure of being taken over by a larger kingdom that's seeking to explore into the north and claim whatever treasure lies there. So it needs protection, and it has a magic pirate to do that. And while all of this is interesting, it's not actually important for what we do in the game. It's just a little bit of world building. And there's absolute piles of lore and conversations that exist only to establish the various kingdoms, religions, and histories of the world. It's fascinating, and I read as much of it as I could find. None of it is even remotely necessary for the actual gameplay, but I always love to see the effort in making something that feels alive and real. And if you're not interested in that, don't worry. If you ever get caught in a long conversation or reading a book, you can just press start and cancel out of basically any dialogue. It's a really nice feature for a game with a lot of text. But I think it's time to talk about what's actually important in the game, and that is the gameplay. It's a lot like Zelda. Thanks for watching! Of course I'm kidding, but stupid jokes aside, you will find that if you've played a Zelda game, a 2D one at least, this is going to feel very familiar in style. Your character is locked to moving in the 4 cardinal directions. There's no diagonal movement. It feels a little stiff, but the game is designed around it, so I think it works fine. Your main tool for interacting with the world is a pickaxe. It's used like a Zelda sword, but it can also break rocks and push things. You see, the vast majority of puzzles in this game are switch puzzles, where you have to get all the objects onto the switches while keeping paths open for yourself and maybe dodging enemies. To help with that, one of the very first items you get is a creepy magic hand that teleports you back to the start of the room. It's weird, unexplained, and spooky, but it doesn't actually really matter because it's a very important game mechanic, so you can't spend your time worrying about the hand or not trusting the hand, you just have to use it. Its main function is keeping you from getting stuck or soft-locked while you're moving things around, but it's also often incorporated into the puzzle solutions itself, adding another layer of difficulty. As you go on, more items are unlocked that give you more options for movement or fighting or puzzle solving. There's a lasso that behaves like a hook shot, except that it can also pull you through terrain and over elevation changes. I think that's pretty interesting. Going through obstacles adds yet another dimension to the puzzles and how you approach them. There's also a glove that lets you fist your way past rocks and over gaps. Believe me when I say that the difficulty of this game ramps up massively over the course of it, especially in some of the post-credits dungeons. And we'll get to that. The game goes a lot of places, but at first it's basically just getting settled into town. Your grandfather wants you to hang around and help him out and sort of learn to live in the town again and be useful and make peace with the people who hate you. He introduces you to his blacksmithing apprentice, Bolivar, who is incredibly friendly and happy to meet you, which is kind of suspicious given the fact that you have a bad reputation in this town. He asks you to go into various dungeons to get him metals to smith and items to work with the metals. There's nothing weird about that, and Grandfather doesn't say there's anything wrong with it, so you get to doing it. So you start asking around town, finding out where dungeons are, doing small favors for the townsfolk, and then going to the dungeons and getting past puzzles and monsters and beating the bosses. Pretty standard stuff with a fair amount of optional things you can do to find heart pieces. Sorry, they're not called heart pieces, they're life or whatever. And also you can unlock more character development both for yourself and for the townsfolk. Most notably, you can give your grandfather $400 to pay off the debt that Orin originally stole from his parents. All of this has solid writing, and the gameplay progression feels like a fast, lean, compact version of a Zelda game. There's no wasted time, and the world is really small, but it's extremely dense with all the things you can do in it. After you complete the first set of dungeons, some bad stuff happens. I don't want to get too far into spoilers, but an evil god shows up and your grandfather is killed. That's the end of Act 1. I'd like to go off on a tangent right now about the music in this game. I'm not an expert on music in any way, but I do pay attention to it, and I often re-listen to video game OSTs that I like. I'm a big fan. And man, I like the music in Prodigal. It's got cool and mysterious dungeon music, lively and entertaining boss music, and some melancholic and wistful town music. It makes you feel things. Bonus dungeon Damon's Dive even has a theme that grows in complexity and intensity the more floors that you complete. So, someone was cooking on the music in this game, and it shows. Anyway, back to Act 2. At the start of it, Orin is wounded and in sort of a fugue state where he's forced to confront all his inner demons and past failures. He runs away from the town, taking a ship to anywhere else, but the sailors think he's bad luck after a massive storm hits the boat and they toss him off on an iceberg. Pretty cold, if you ask me. With no other options, Orin begins to explore the iceberg and eventually kills a giant monster. Then, Amadeus, the magic pirate that protects Van's Point, shows up and rescues him. Amadeus does not do this out of the goodness of his heart. He does not like Orin because of his past actions and because of what he's recently caused to happen to the town, but he brings him back to Van's Point in order to make him fix the things he's caused to happen to the town and also out of debt to his grandfather. He essentially tells Orin to shape up and be a decent person. And then Orin begins to change. He manages to work on his own mental health, metaphorically through a dungeon, and eventually overcomes his own selfishness, symbolically changing colors. Time passes and people begin to see Orin as a good member of the town, rather than just the kid that ran off with the stolen money. It's got this theme of taking charge of your own life even as time passes. You don't have to be that stupid kid that you were in the past. You can move on. You can forgive yourself and grow up. It's a surprisingly mature message that is handled extremely well. At this point in the game, things get a lot more open and a lot less linear. There's still dungeons to clear, but they're a lot weirder now. Before you had normal themes like Seaside Cave, Lava Cave, Castle. Now you have dungeons in places like parallel worlds, lighthouses, and your own mind. You also have more freedom to explore the map, and like I said, the map is actually very small, but it is extremely dense. It's packed with event triggers and NPCs and places to see and treasure to find. I would say the first act made me feel nostalgic for old Zeldas and safe in a game style that felt very familiar. Act 2 starts giving a lot more interesting puzzles, dungeons, and storylines, and you start to meet a lot more exotic and otherworldly characters. This includes a giant goddess? Demoness? I don't know. Her name actually is Colorgrave, after the company's name. She's one of the people that helps Orin become strong enough to eventually enter the lighthouse and defeat the evil god and keep the town safe. But I don't think I want to get too specific on spoilers for the plot. Suffice to say that it was always interesting and I was always excited to find out what was going to happen next. As for the side stuff, probably the most important thing is marrying one of the town girls. It's not really necessary, but you have lots of choices. Will you take the shy girl? The coffee addict? The childhood friend and cook that the game is definitely leading you towards? The fisher woman who hates you? The weird alchemy lady? The, bunny girl? Personally, I went with the strong sword lady. She asks me for money every day and I give it to her for no return. Cool relationship. Every girl has her own little plotline and requirements to romance, and it's not really that much for romance anyway, but it's very nice and it's kept really simple. You can also play wingman for the two other eligible bachelors in the town. They can only pair up with a couple different choices of women, but it's still a fun thing to do, and I think it still has good character development. So beating the boss of Act 2 gets you the credits, but if you want more, and I sure did, there's an absolute ton of post-game content. Several dungeons, a new weird plot and objective, and 2 massive compilation dungeons that are based on all the previous ones, but way harder, both in puzzles and combat. It took me 4 hours to finally clear the last one, and I'm pretty sure I didn't clear all of these puzzles as intended. You see, I figured out a couple of exploits, I hate how that sounds. Let's call them unintended mechanics. So I figured out a couple of unintended mechanics that let me do things like push objects sideways from the wrong angle by starting a push and quickly inputting another direction. This is insanely useful and not even that hard to do. Surely they must have known about it. Furthermore, once you get the glove that launches you forward, you can carefully put yourself on an edge to launch yourself 2 spaces instead of 1. This is also very easy, but breaks a lot of puzzles. I did do these things, but I felt like I was cheating, so I intentionally stopped myself. I'm not sure what to make of these, but if it bothers you, just don't do them. You can eventually work your way to a quote-unquote true ending, if you want that. If I had to complain, all this post-game stuff is kind of a nightmare of going to everyone and talking to them to find event triggers, and it's best to just look up what to do next. I did my best to clear every single bit of content in my playthrough, and that still wasn't all of it because you can make a new game and do New Game Plus challenges too. I haven't touched that, but I still might. But I want to wrap up by saying that I found Prodigal to be well made and engaging. The characters are charming and the pixel art was very nice. The world feels alive with the amazing music and the extensive world building. To sum it up, Prodigal is the total package. It excels in every area, and the themes of time passing, making amends, and making the most of your short life are ever present and profound. It's fun, it's challenging, it's interesting. I fully recommend it. Maybe next time I'll try the sequel.